Hello and welcome to Ask Wildman. My name is Miles Bassett, the CEO and founder over here at Wildman Web Solutions. Every week, my team and I go live on our Facebook and YouTube channels to just have an open Q&A. So we're here to answer your questions about technology, business, marketing, or anything else you want to ask us about. This week is a little bit different for anyone catching this now or watching this later. We do normally try to run this every Wednesday at 11. That is our regular time, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. I had a little bit of technical issues yesterday, so we're doing this on a Thursday today, but we should be back to regular scheduling next week. All right, with that show note out of the way, I want to welcome my partner here, Mike. Mike, how you doing?
Good morning, Miles. I am fantastic and getting better by the minute. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm happy to be able to get us on here, get us live. No technical difficulties.
Oh,
We've had a little bit of a rough run of it the last couple of weeks on this live stream, but looks like we're good to go today.
yes, it was my fault yesterday. Apparently, I needed a new 220 volt adapter to connect my electricity to my heating unit. Otherwise, it was just tripping off the entire
Is that what
circuit
happened?
in my house. That's what happened. Yeah, so
And I
got
guess
that
the
cleaned up yesterday morning.
internet doesn't really work very well without electricity, does it?
No, I tried rubbing two sticks together a little bit over my laptop, but after about an hour or so, I gave up. It didn't help much. But yeah, we're live and electric today, Miles. Glad to be here. How
Wonderful.
can we help the people today? Let's give it our best shot.
Well, like I said in the top, this is an open Q&A. So if you're watching this now, feel free to throw questions in the comments below. We'll try to address them as best as we can. If you're watching this later, then you can email us at askwildman@wildmanweb.com. I do have that address scrolling below me in that crawler. And like I said, this is a weekly show. So if you email us, we'll try to get back to your questions next week. All right. It seems like we're already getting some comment in here from our favorite viewer, Jeff. Hello, Jeff. Good
Good morning,
morning.
Mr. Fry.
I'm not sure yesterday. Ask.
I don't think I saw it. No. Did you lose
All
Miles
right.
there?
Well,
Oh, there he is.
I may have spoken too soon. So if you want to follow in Jeff's footsteps and ask us some questions, throw your questions in the comments below or email us at askwildman@wildmanweb.com. All right. We're good over here. So it looks like I'm lagging a little bit over here, so I'm going to toss it over to Mike.
Yes, yeah, Miles, you were glitching there a little bit. No, Jeff, we did not. I don't think we did get your note though. Unfortunately, though, if you want to drop it, what the message was in the bottle in the comment section there, though, we'd be happy to address it. But yeah, I think you're pretty good now, Miles.
Yeah,
Not
I was
not
connected
glitching.
to another server
Okay.
from a project this morning, and apparently that was eating up some bandwidth. I was wondering what was going on. Oh, fun stuff, remote servers. Anyway, yeah, here we go. How about a dive into content marketing, says Jeff.
Mm, wow, that's a big one. Okay.
Yeah, want to give us a broader topic, Jeff?
Yeah, was there anything specific, Jeff, in terms of content marketing that you wanted us to dive into? We've gone into it a few different times on the show, so I didn't know if there was something that we hadn't hit or something that we talked about before that it just needed more clarification. But yeah, just content marketing in general is, if for those of you who haven't seen us talk about it before, is this idea where we're creating things that people want to see or want to hear or want to read, instead of the traditional top-down advertising model where we're telling them what they think that we want them to hear or read or think. And so it's a much more kind of a reverse psychology than traditional advertising. We're actually trying to produce content that people are going to want to engage with, regardless of if it has anything directly to do with purchasing our products. We've given a couple different examples of this, but there's endless examples of it. Red Bull right now is doing this whole channel. I believe it's on Netflix, where it's like extreme skiing and snowboarding, and extreme sports and all these things. So it's giving content to who they think is their target audience, and it's talking to them with the exact things that they want to be talked to about. They don't necessarily care how long Red Bull's been in business or what the ingredients are or this or that. They care about doing active stuff and extreme sports and et cetera, et cetera. So that's what Red Bull is creating content about. Instead of just me, how great is Red Bull? It's reversing it and talking about something that the audience is actually more interested in. Okay, content, channels, emails. Yeah. So those are all good questions. I'd point you, Jeff, to that book if you haven't picked it up already, Content Inc. by Joe Litzy, because he lays this all out much better than I can do here, but I'll give it a stab. So basically, the first thing that you want to figure out is who's your audience, and it can be done a myriad of different ways. But you want to figure out who's your audience and find out everything you possibly can about those people, which with digital advertising is easier to do now than ever. So you want to find out who they are, where they live, what they do, what they eat, what they're interested in, et cetera, et cetera. But most importantly, you want to find out what are their pain points, what are the things that they need solutions to, and how can you help them? That's the really underlying thing here that we're trying to get at. And then you want to find out what we call a content tilt. And Miles, if you want to put the link to that book in the chat, that'd be, I think, helpful for everybody. But find a content tilt. So what content platform do you work best with? Oh, he's already ahead of me, Miles is. If you're somebody who's a great writer, okay, well then maybe your content tilt is blogging or ebooks or something like that. If you're great on camera, maybe it's YouTube. If you're great at speaking, maybe it's podcasting. But you want to find out, what are you best at producing, and is your audience actually there? Okay, he says got the book. Nice. Okay, yeah. So dig into that for sure. But for anybody else who's curious about this, Miles just put the link there in the in the comment section for you. So you too could check out Content Inc. It's great stuff. And also his website, contentmarketinginstitute.com, I believe is what it is, has a wealth of resources as well. And then once you find out your content tilt, then you want to just churn out as much content as you possibly can on one channel. Start with one channel, build your audience as big as you can on that channel. And if that channel is a social media channel, I'll just say Facebook and YouTube, because that's what we're broadcasting to right now. Then you want to be trying to move that traffic off of your channel into something that you control, which is usually an email list or a website. And so then you can contact those people again and again on your own terms. And so if the algorithms change completely, if your YouTube page gets demonetized and you can't get as many views as you once did, well, at least you could tap into that audience in some other way. And then the only thing that left that you really have to figure out, Jeff, is how can I make this content consistent and be relevant to the end consumer? And how can I provide value? Is what we talk about a lot, right? How can I get them to get something out of this besides me trying to sell them something, right? How can I get them to be educated, to be informed, or be entertained? And once you figure out that, then it's just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Once you get it down on one channel, you can move to a second channel. But the thing to keep in mind is that if you're going to try to do multiple channels, it's best to contextualize that to each individual channel. And by contextualizing that to each individual channel, I mean actually changing the copy, changing the pictures, changing the words, changing the things that you're saying depending on who you're talking to and what platform you're talking to on, because people act differently on LinkedIn than they do on Instagram. And so they think differently on LinkedIn than they do on Instagram when they are consuming content. So I'm going to be a little bit more laid back, right, on Instagram than I am on LinkedIn, and vice versa. So that's what I mean by contextualizing it to the platform. But Jeff, is that pretty much what you were asking, or is there something else there that I'm missing in your question? And yeah, well, there's a little bit of lag here, so while we're waiting for Jeff to respond, I'm just going to point again to the comment section. Miles put all kinds of great links in there.
A little bit of a duplicate there.
Oh, okay. I was going to say there's a lot of links in there, but it looks like Miles is freezing again there. But oh, there he is. What were you going to say, Miles?
I was just saying in the comment section, I had put the link to the book as well as the link to the website. I just copied the link to the book twice. So the second comment I put the website on is actually the website link.
Got it. Okay.
And you were right. It is the contentmarketinginstitute.com.
There you go. Yeah, so a wealth of information there for everybody who wants to dig into content marketing. And I really encourage you to do this. Just a little bit of a high level thing here. This is the way that marketing is going to be done, the way that advertising is going to be done from here on out. The old model is dying, albeit slowly, but it is definitely dying. And the next generation, Gen Z, and even millennials, they don't respond already to top-down marketing, to the old style, near as much as they do to what we call this new kind of marketing, I guess, although it's been around for a while now. It's really something that you need to invest in, especially if you're going to have a long-term future. You're going to build a brand. You're going to build an audience. It's the slower way to go, but it is definitely the way that you can make a timeless brand. And just to show that this is not some sort of a new fad, I know we've talked about this a little bit before on the show, but this goes back, over 100 years ago to companies like Michelin tires, and they started in France as a bicycle company, actually. And John Deere, of course, tractors is a great example of this here in America, where John Deere, for years and years and years, they put out, I forget, I'm blanking on what the title of it was at the moment, but it was basically a resource almanac or manual, if you will, I think quarterly published for farmers. And it had everything to do with what you would need to do to keep up with current information. Back in current, I'm talking about the late 1800s here. Current information. Pardon?
The Furrow is the name.
The Furrow. Thank
you,
Miles. All right. Another great example. Yeah, it's in the book. And so they put out all this great information that was value to their end consumer, and it got the end consumer to know, like, and trust them, and to recognize that brand and to trust that brand. And they never put any straight advertising in the publication. There was never a, hey, we're running a sale on a tractor. Not once. Never. Did not do that. And so the same type of mentality is applied to these days to content marketing. Now, every once in a while, you got to throw a right hook, but the content itself is not a right hook or an ask for money, is what is a slang term for that. The same thing with Michelin. They did. Let's say it was France, and it was like I said, they were a biking company, and they made a tourist publication, if I remember correctly, because at the time people didn't really travel outside of their villages, their towns very much, and go visit other places. Where road trips weren't a thing yet. And so this was kind of like how to do a road trip. How would you go over to the next county and visit somewhere cool and have a great experience and have a day trip and come back? Again, they weren't trying to sell their tires. They weren't trying to sell their bicycles or anything like that. They were trying to give people valuable information that was going to be a win for them and get them to know, like, and trust the brand. So this stuff's been around for over 100 years, but it has really been accelerated in the last 10 or 15 years or so, and it's really a premium method for digital advertising for the internet. And so, yeah, after you read Content Inc., the next one is Killing Marketing, where Joe Plitzi just goes into even more detail about how this is the new type of marketing and how you should apply it to your business. And then he's got another one that's up on the website that I've yet to read. I'm in the middle of this one right now, Copywriting Secrets, but I think that's going to be my piece of content right there that I believe is available for free, if I'm not mistaken, on his website. So we've just given Joe and the Old Content Marketing Institute a great advertisement here. Speaking of advertising, but yeah, seriously, check those guys out. So Jeff, did you have any follow-up questions to that, or did I dive far enough for you? It's a deep rabbit hole. All right, yeah.
Nope. Hopefully we got
some more things in there.
Yeah, we got that over here, and also pulling up some articles over here on the Michelin Guide, which is the publication that you were talking about over here as one of the earliest forms of sort of content marketing, where their initial discoveries were to provide value and not to promote directly, but rather to put good information out here. Here's the article saying, inform, don't promote. The value of the guide as a marketing tool only increased when Michelin took the took the ads out and made it into a consumer product. And the other point they put in here was about evaluating and adjusting. So they were continually looking at how their content was being used, who was using it, sort of what we would now call analytics and the different kinds of metrics that we measure in our advertising campaigns, and adjusting their strategy as they move forward. So they made something that was dynamic, that was adjustable, that was malleable, rather than sort of the I don't know, the static versions of what people would call marketing now. They made something that they can grow and change over time to sort of fit the needs of whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's a great point, Miles. And that's something that Joe Polizzi digs into a little bit more in his books and explains how you utilize this method to really learn and understand your audience and to listen to the audience, because it creates a feedback loop. And they end up just telling you what they want more of and what they want less of. And they eventually tell you what they want you to sell to them and how you can let them buy it from you. If you follow this further and further in terms of engagement and creating that feedback loop of creating value with your end consumer. Yeah, and there's another famous company that I'm forgetting of right now that did the same thing, but on the East Coast of United States, and they put out basically a travel magazine. I'm forgetting now if that was Ford or one of the early vehicle manufacturers, but obviously these are all household names today. So that's how we know it works, right? And you think about they've all had tremendous competition over the years, but this was the formula that really had them win out in terms of market share, market voice over their competitors, if you ask me. So looks like Jeff has a follow-up question there.
Yeah, he's asking about specific types of content. So what is the most effective in content format, blog, video, written, combo? I'll let you expand on this, but I answer it as a non-marketer. I'm sure Mike could create content and sell snowshoes to an Eskimo in any format out there. But for those of us who are less comfortable doing this kind of thing, the answer is whatever you're best at, whatever you are most comfortable putting out there, because it is important to put out good quality content. It's important to put it out regularly, and if you hate doing it, then you're not going to do it regularly. And if you're bad at doing it, you're not going to put out quality content. So look at what you don't mind doing, what you're good at, what your skill set is. For example, if you just really hate being on camera, you're camera shy, start writing, do blogging. If you suck at blogging, but you suck at writing, and that you can just sit here and talk about something, maybe video is the right means for you. Maybe you want to look at just audio, put out a podcast. There's a number of different ways that you can create content, put out value, and be engaging with your customer base. And any one of these can be leveraged properly on a number of different online platforms, getting them out there to your audience effectively. But to start off with, at the very least, just start with what you know and what you're good at, what you actually like doing. That's going to be my piece of advice there. Um, Mike, do you have anything to add on to that as the actual professional marketer here?
Well, great job, Miles. No, I don't. I don't have much to add to that other than, I always make the joke that, and it's really somewhat true, that you could stand outside your business on 6th Street with a sandwich sign, or you waving at people and get results if what that is on that sign means something to somebody and is going to be a strong call to action, is going to get them to convert, right? It's more of a question, like you were saying, of what am I personally feel like I'm best at, and so therefore, what am I going to crank out the most content about? Because any of these mediums can work. It's just a level of some work better than others, right? The guy standing on 6th Street with the sign can work, probably not the highest, best use of time and dollars compared to some other methods that we have out there. But if that's what's going to get them to create messages and create content, stand outside with the sign. But to answer your question in a more general way, Jeff, in terms of what the platforms, the social media platforms in general, are pushing right now and what they're really liking, if you can do video, and specifically if you can do live video like we're doing right now, that's going to be the biggest winner for you. But like Miles was saying, if somebody is camera shy and just clutch up on live camera and not be able to talk, well, then obviously that would be a terrible decision. Maybe they're a great writer and they can put out a blog or something like that. So always fall back to your strengths. But yeah, in terms of what the algorithms like, they like video, they like live content on most platforms, other than something like Medium, which is all written content. So hopefully that answers.
Expand a little bit on a point you've made before, but I think fits in perfectly here. It kind of seems like the natural follow-up question to what Jeff has asked here. So I'm just going to imply this last question, and that is, you have to decide what platform to put your content out on. You have to decide what medium to put your content out on, whether you're writing or recording or videoing or whatever you're doing. But the final question is, how do I create content? What do I write about? What do I record? What do I talk about? Especially if I'm not just a natural writer, a content producer, a media personality. And I think that there's a nice default answer that you've given before on this show, and we've talked about a little bit, is that if nothing else, you don't know what else to do, document. Just document what it is that you do all day. If you own a restaurant, then maybe bring a camera into the kitchen and show how to make something. If you are a plumber, write an article about easy DIY plumbing fixes, or maybe the shortcuts to avoid, because that's how you flood your house. Whatever it is you do, just document what you're doing throughout the day and put that out there as content. As long as you are doing good work and presenting it honestly, then most likely that's going to be some fairly decent content and a good way to at least get you started, to get your feet wet, and get you going on content marketing.
Yeah, that's a great point, Miles. Don't overthink it. I think a lot of people overthink it, and they think that creating content has to be a production, that they have to be a media company. It should. It would be nice. But at the very least, you just need to be creating something. And so if you're not able to create content, so to speak, document what you're already doing, or come up with ways that you could help people, that you could give advice to people and put that out there. And anybody can do that. Everybody these days has a good camera that has a decent mic on it right in their phone. There's no excuse not to just record something and put it out there. And the other thing I would say is, don't be afraid to put your mistakes out there. Don't be afraid to put your faults out there, the things that, obviously maybe not, if it's something that which goes terribly wrong, okay, it's going to be detrimental to your business. Hopefully you don't have many things like that, but, use some judgment in what you put out, but don't make it like uh, offend some people with this comment. Like, most sorority girls' Instagram feed, right? Where it's all the highlights of the best things that happened to them in that semester, right? Like, put the bad things in there, okay? Put when the guy broke up with you too. So that's what I mean by business owners can take a little bit of that advice as well and put some of their struggles in there, because that's real. I mean, there's nothing more difficult, arguably, than being a business owner. So especially during COVID. So don't be afraid to think that it has to be all roses and sunshine, because that's not real life. And people want to see things that are real, and they respond better to things that are real, and they engage better with things that are real.
And I want to address the last comment here from Jeff on this, and then maybe we can move on to something else. But I think this is actually, he brings up a really good point here. So, do writing and video. Bob is a great writer. I'm a ham. Is that a conflict? No, absolutely not. I don't think so. I think actually that brings up a couple of really good strengths that we had kind of glossed over here. If you can produce content on multiple platforms in multiple mediums, then that can be a really good strength because you're reaching other people. Some people like me, I'll just sit here and listen to podcasts all day while I work. So that's a really great way to reach me. Other people are on YouTube all the time. Other people are voracious readers, and they follow blogs. They like the written word. So putting things out in multiple mediums is a good way to reach multiple people in different subsects of your audience. Also, you're doing something here that is what we were just talking about, leveraging your talents. So a lot of us, a lot of business owners, we don't work alone. We have a team, we have partners, there's multiple owners, or you've got a great management staff, whatever it is, and you all have different skills. You should leverage those. So if your teammate over here is an amazing writer, but you yourself are not, then have him or her do the writing, and you take the video or the audio element. Maybe you do the live Facebook streams, and then he does the writing over here. So that's you hit on a couple of really awesome strengths there. That is, leverage your strengths across your entire team, not just for yourself. Put out stuff on multiple mediums, multiple platforms, if at all possible. And then finally, one we didn't really hit here, but a way to put out content on multiple mediums is to reuse that content. We kind of talked about this a few weeks ago, I think, but if you do video, for example, we can take the video from, or the audio from a video, rip that and turn that into a podcast. You can take the audio from a video or from a podcast and transcribe that into an article. Or maybe just take the key points of that and turn that into a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post referencing your video or your podcast. So one piece of content can be broken down and turned into 15 pieces across different platforms and different mediums. And that could be a really good way to get your message out on in multiple ways to a lot of different kinds of people, and also not just eat up your day trying to make 15 pieces of content.
Yes, and along those lines, Wildman Web Solutions is launching a podcast here coming very, very soon, based on this show here that you faithfully tune into every Wednesday, sometimes Thursday, on Facebook and YouTube. Yes, we are going to just take the audio and put it out there as a podcast. So look for that coming soon. And please download, subscribe, and leave a 5-star review. But yeah, that's exactly true, Miles. I don't have anything else to add to that other than to announce the podcast coming soon.
That was good shameless self-promotion there.
I
Although I
get them
really
in when I can.
I don't mind promoting this show, because we're trying to do it as a resource and answer as many questions as possible for people. So hopefully we're being useful to our audience out there. And if you think that this content is valuable, then yeah, check out the podcast that we're going to be putting out here, and also help us out by liking, sharing this video, and getting people to ask us their questions. So hopefully we can be even more useful to more people. Okay, I wanted to spend a little bit of time here on a slightly different topic, a little bit more technical. we'll wait here. If you want to throw in any comments here and put your questions in the comments below, if you have any questions, you want us to take a deeper dive on something, or you just had a personal experience with what we're talking about here, throw those in the comments or email us at askwildman at wildmanweb.com. You can also follow us at wildmanweb. I've got that handle right below me here in the video. But over the last couple of days, been working with a client on a new site, and we're having some domain issues. So I wanted to just very briefly touch on domain and hosting, how all that stuff works real quick. I'd kind of done this before on the show, but this is a question that we really do get a lot. So the websites kind of work like this. There is your actual website files. These are HTML, CSS, JavaScript, other code files that show what a website actually is. This is the structure of the site, the look and the feel of it, the colors, the fonts, the animations, the functions of what all those buttons do. Those all reside in files. These are just saved as pretty much text files with the code in them, and then they are saved onto a server somewhere. A server is just a computer. This computer knows how to interpret those files and run that code, process it. That server and the space that you're taking up on that server is hosting. That when we're talking about hosting, we're just saying this is the place where you put your website files. It's the box where you put the files into, and that's it. Then when we talk about domains, the domain is the address of that box. So when you put a domain into your browser, Chrome, Internet Explorer, Edge, Firefox, whatever it is, that's telling it where to look, what server to look at, what IP address to go to find that box on that server somewhere in the world. So these three things kind of make up a full website. You need all of them. You need a domain, you need hosting, and you need the actual website files to be developed. When you pay for a website to be developed, what you're getting is those website files. And in addition to that, you need to buy some hosting. You can do that through a number of hosting companies. A lot of people use GoDaddy, different cloud hosting solutions, Voltaire, DigitalOcean, Google has a cloud hosting service. And then your domain, you get that from what's called a domain registrar. A lot of times this is provided by hosting companies, but it is a separate service. And this is all you're doing is claiming that domain name and then pointing it to your hosting environment. Domains are super cheap. Generally speaking, a normal one is $12 a year or something like that. Unless you're getting something, a premium domain name, then they can get pretty expensive. But generally speaking, very affordable, very easy to get. Then in order to point your domain to your website, to your hosting environment, you'll alter what's called the DNS settings, or the domain name server settings. That's where you give it the IP address of your hosting environment, where you tell it, this domain is pointing to this particular box in this hosting environment. Once you do that, again, we're back into hosting. Hosting can vary a lot. There's economy hosting out there for like $2 a month. It's nothing. So what you're doing there is you're just sort of renting a little folder on a shared server. Server, again, is just a computer sitting in a room somewhere. You're renting one folder on there, but there's a ton of other folders on there. It's a shared environment. So you're renting out a tiny little space on that computer along with 100, 1,000 other people. It's really cheap because you are sharing it with a bunch of different people, but that also means that you're not going to get very good performance because you're only taking up one little sliver of what this machine can do. It also opens you up to security issues, because if one person on there doesn't know how to build a good website and they get hacked, then there's a possibility that it can go from one folder to another, and that entire shared environment can be compromised. So again, cheap, but not very effective, not very high performance, very poor security. Lots of problems with doing that, but it's cheap as hell. So there's that. You can take a couple of steps up from that and go to sort of normal hosting, say GoDaddy hosting. and get that for 10, 15, $20 a month. And that's some pretty good stuff. You're not going to get incredible performance out of that. You're not going to get very good support, but the security is going to be better. The tools that come with it to manage that hosting environment are going to be a bit better. Usually come with a more advanced cPanel or some sort of management tools to help you transfer files around and manage your website. But again, the performance isn't going to be amazing if you have a high traffic website or a website that's going to do a whole lot. It'll be okay for lots of smaller applications, though. You can take a step up from that and go into mostly these kinds of services are cloud hosting environments. And this is where you are getting a more dedicated section of a cloud hosting environment. So you're going to get higher performance. You're going to get better security. You're going to get a lot better tools for managing your site. Some of them come with other services, backup services, security services, performance enhancing services, analytics tools, all that kind of stuff to make it easier to manage your site. This is going to serve larger applications a lot better, larger websites, higher traffic websites, and overall you're going to have less security issues at that point. And then finally, at the end of that, you're getting something that's like a dedicated server. This is where like you're buying the entire server, you're getting this entire space all to yourself. This machine is dedicated to you and your platform alone. That can get really expensive. Now, if you're running a large scale mobile application or something like that, then you might want to look at, if you're Uber, you have an app that's serving millions of people across the country, across the world. You need this thing to be super high security, perform exactly right. Or if you need custom configuration, so you have to set up this server to operate specifically for you, then you might want to look at a dedicated hosting environment or a dedicated server. Those are kind of the different options for hosting. I know I kind of went through a lot of that very quickly. It's a little bit more technical than the last topic we were talking about, but this is my world. Mike, did I miss anything there, or anything that I should take a little bit further, a little bit deeper?
No, I just think the takeaway for me on that stuff is you're going to get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people they don't see the value in paying a little bit extra to have really great hosting until it's too late and they have issues. and so it's just it's just really use common sense. Don't just buy something because it's cheap. Really look into how it's going to affect the way your website performs, and take that against what you need it to do in order to make sure that your customers are getting the service that you want them to think about when they think about your business. Because that's a real easy way to piss off a whole lot of customers, is to have a slow, lagging website, and some of the issues that come up with cheap hosting, and it's just not worth it, in the long run. To have that denigration to your brand, if you will, through the user experience of a bad website. So, I mean, that goes for websites in general, but I just don't think people a lot of time take the time to acknowledge how important hosting goes into having a great website and having a great user experience. So,
Absolutely. And one thing on that, I went through those different levels. There's a time and a place for everything, I think, and each one of those has their time and place, except for the cheap one. The super economy hosting, just don't do it. Never do it. There's no reason to. Everything's going to crash on you. You're going to have security problems. You're going to have performance problems. It's just not worth it at that point. So pay the extra $10 a month or whatever, and get at least that second level up. Go to GoDaddy. Go to Google. Like you can do a lot of fairly affordable hosting solutions that are going to work way better and give you less headaches. Now, if you can, and you're really going to, or you really want to do something good, then I would recommend going to that third tier and doing cloud hosting solutions. That gives you a couple of different benefits. Like I said, much better performance, higher security, better tools that come with it. And also one thing I kind of miss, and that's that's scalability. So you can start off kind of small and just sort of pay for what you need, and then scale up from that point. So say you're going to, like, SiteGround is a good cloud hosting platform, or DigitalOcean, or Voltaire, or Google has a cloud hosting environment. You can just pay for the minimum to start off with, and then as you grow and you need more space, you need better performance, you're getting more and more traffic, you can just pay for more as you go, and it'll grow with you. So that's another really big benefit to those cloud hosting environments. And if you really need something, something big, something crazy, something specific to you or your app, then we can start talking about dedicated hosting environments. But those cloud hosting environments really cover a lot of ground.
For sure.
All right. Well, that was my spiel on domains, hosting, websites, general technical stuff. If you want to learn more about anything that we're talking about here, you can go to our website, wildmanweb.com/articles. We've got a full article section there we're adding to all the time. There's articles on content marketing, on blog writing, on social media. There's also articles on some more technical things there, on different kinds of hosting and website development and SEO. So that's a really good place to start learning. Or, like I said, I said earlier, we're putting links in the comments here. So go down in the comments and check out what we have been linking down there. Otherwise, send us your questions at askwildman@wildmanweb.com. Put them in the comments here. We'll try to answer them here, or maybe write an article about it and give you some links. Do whatever we can to be a good resource for you. All righty. Next topic. I think we're going to be winding down here in a little bit, but I think we should probably do one or two more things. Mike, did you have any questions in your hopper over there?
Yeah, I have a question that may just turn into a rant, if you will,
No.
but I'll try to make it as constructive as possible, Miles, if you'd like me to. Um, the question came about, and the question was basically, why not? To me, telling a client that they couldn't use something in their copy. And the reason I said that they shouldn't use it, I guess, is what I said, is that because it was an unsubstantiated claim. An unsubstantiated claim, I think most people understand the definition of that. Something that is a claim that can't be backed up. But how does that pertain to advertising, specifically in our copy, and what we say to our consumers, to our audience, and how that can affect our business? And it's one of the 12 causes of advertising failure, actually. And that's something that I'll explain here in a little bit, because I did realize that I've made reference to the 12 causes of advertising failure, I think, numerous times over the past several weeks, and never really dove into what that is. And it's something that maybe people aren't very familiar with. So I wanted to take this opportunity to dive into that a little bit. But yeah, so basically the client was wanting to say that they were the best at something, or that they could do something that was not being able to be backed up by anything other than their own claim. That yes, I can do this. And so, as you might imagine, in human psychology, that type of persuasion is much less effective than a third party or a testimonial or something like that saying, yes, these people can do this. They will do this for you, et cetera, right? It's obviously much more persuasive to get somebody outside of our own self to say, yes, this person will do something for us. So that's why it's a really big mistake. But the 12 causes of advertising failure goes back to a guy named Roy Williams, not the basketball coach, but the Wizard of Ads, who runs a Wizard of Ads academy out of Austin, Texas. He's been doing this for, gosh, I don't know, probably since the 80s at least. And he's really, really big, especially in the radio advertising world. So this is what I would call old school stuff. And I know just a little bit ago we were talking about how the old school type of marketing and advertising is going out the window, but there's still a whole lot of truths and things that were really, really relative back then that are still relative and true today in the new digital and even in content marketing and advertising. So I think it's really, really important that people understand this. And so I'm just going to really, really quickly read through the 12 causes of advertising failure. And then there's a few in particular that I'm going to dig into and explain a little bit more depth, because these are things that I see business owners making these mistakes every single day almost, still in 2020. So the first cause is desire for instant gratification. And I always say to people, it's not like turning on a light switch. And people really need to understand that good advertising, good marketing takes time. And so you have to be able to put aside your desire for instant gratification and think about things in the long term. The second one is attempting to reach more people than the budget will allow. This is huge for small business owners. Is that they want to spend a little bit here, they want to spend a little bit there, and they want to test things, right? And that's natural to test things. But if you don't have the budget to test things, you're really never going to be able to test these plethora of things that you want to test far enough to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And I cannot tell you how many times I've seen, and it's usually the really small businesses, the people that say I have $500 a month to spend on advertising, and they spend it 1 month over here, then a couple months later it's over here, then a couple months later it's over here, and then it's over here. And at the end of the year, they have no idea what worked, what didn't work, et cetera, et cetera. It's like that old advertising saying that I know 50% of my advertising is working, I just don't know which half, right? That's common mistake for small business owners. So that's why we say a lot of times to start on one platform, start with one audience, and then work yourself out from there and build as you grow. We'd rather reach, we'd rather get 10% of the audience to go 100% of the way with us than trying to reach 100% of the audience and getting everybody to only go 10% of the way. That doesn't help anybody. So the third one is assuming the business owner knows best. This one may sting a little bit to the business owners out there, but we call this one small business man or small business woman's disease. And it's basically the idea that you are in an unqualified position to really understand how your audience sees your business, because you're inside the business every day operating it. You're not outside of it looking at it from a fresh perspective. It's a lot like being on the inside of a bottle and trying to read the label. It's much easier to do that on the outside of the bottle. The next one is creating ads instead of campaigns. That one's pretty self-explanatory, but your entire advertising should be a sequence that ties together, not little spurts of ideas here and there that are non sequitur. The next one is late week schedules. That one's not as relevant today as it used to be, but people still see here, I guess, people making this mistake. If you're doing anything like recruitment, employment recruitment, things like that, you should not be buying radio and television ads late in the week or on the weekend. You should be doing that early in the week. The next one is a big one in 2020. That is overconfidence and qualitative targeting. The great thing about social media, the great thing about Google AdWords and all these things is that we can target exactly who we want to reach, and we can really, really hone in on those people. The problem is that we can over-rely on that targeting capability, and we can forget the most important thing, and that is, what are we going to say to them? How are we going to provide value? How are we going to get them to know, like, and trust us? The next one is event-driven marketing. That one's not as big of a challenge these days, since there aren't many events going. But as I used to say back in my radio days, remotes cause cancer. If you're doing something like a remote broadcast or trying to create a one-off event in order to make that a big sales event in your business, that is a great way to screw everything up, because you got to go back to the very first mistake, and that's the desire for instant gratification. And that's what people who over-rely on event marketing do, is they rely on these short-term wins, these small windows of interaction with their consumer and their audience base to create these massive results. And it's very, very difficult in order to do that. And a lot of times it just ends in bad budget being spent. This one is really, really important, and I touched on it just a minute ago. Great production without great copy. The most important thing is what you could say. And in today's world, with everybody, doing video and et cetera, and we love video and we think you should do video, but people get so obsessed with the image quality and the type of camera and cuts and the editing and the special effects, and they forget the most important part. And what are we saying to the audience that's going to provide value, that's going to get them to know, like, and trust us? And then the last one is confusing response with results. And this is a big one, even today in the social media industry. Likes don't equal sales, right? So, people say, well, we put this post out, we put this ad out, and it got a whole bunch of likes. Awesome. How many people bought something? That's what really matters. So it's not, likes are nice, but likes don't pay the bills. And so let's not over qualify, what our response is compared to what the actual results are. So those 12 causes of advertising failure. Like I said, a few of those there at the very end, I think, are extremely important. And a couple there at the beginning, attempting to reach more budget than the people than the budget will allow. Oh, and I skipped one, and that was I skipped two of them, and that was on purpose. Coming back to improper use of passive media. So improper use of passive media, we used to really think about that in terms of print, using newspaper, using magazines, things like that. And luckily, people aren't making that mistake as much as they used to be in the past. But in the same token, a lot of people are using passive type of content in, say, social media. What I mean by that is that they're not using content that goes out and engages, or they're not using things like video. They're just using written text and things like that. Those obviously don't get near the results as something that's going to be engaging, that's going to be multimedia, that's going to be 3D, such as a live video like we're doing right now. And then the last one, the one that I skipped over because I wanted to come back to it because it was what started all this, is unsubstantiated claims. And we hear this all the time. It's the highest quality at the lowest price. It's the best deal in town. It's the most friendliest service you're going to find, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And really what they are is they're empty promises. And I really encourage you, to do an audit of the messaging that you're doing in your business, and to make sure that you're not using unsubstantiated claims, and that you're not, relying too much on targeting instead of what you're saying, and these kind of things, because these types of mistakes can really, really hurt somebody, because they're usually making them as they're spending a whole lot of money in order to reach people. The next time you are watching cable television, or you're listening to the radio, or you're scrolling on Facebook, stop and look at some of the ads that people are running. And most of the time when they make a claim, it can be easily followed by, well, duh, or I'd hope so. Because they're not really saying anything that matters, and they're not really saying anything that is a substantiated claim. And the problem is, and it breaks my heart, is that they're spending a whole lot of money usually in order to say these things. And so, that's why I read books like these, because, and this guy's great. You should read all of Mr. Edwards' books. But it really is the most important thing that you can do in terms of your marketing and your messaging in your business, is get the messaging down right, get the copy down right, and say the right things to people, and stop using unsubstantiated claims. Find another way to say it. Find a way to somebody to say it for you, or go out and get testimonials, go get a third-party case study, have some empirical, objective way to say that you're great and you're wonderful and you're going to do a good job for people. Don't just go out and say that yourself, because you're just wasting time and money. So there is kind of an answer to a question, Miles, that was really just kind of more of a passive-aggressive rant, and also I want to take the opportunity to explain the importance of the 12 causes of advertising failure to the audience out there, and I hope that they get something out of that, and they go and they look up Red Williams, and really that is just a small part of his amazing book called The Wizard of Ads. So since we're giving people a long list of things to go out and buy today, there's another one for you. Did you have anything to add to that, Miles, or any questions out there from the viewers?
Just one thing here, and that is that I went ahead and threw that link to the PDF file of the 12 causes of advertising failures that we're reading off of over here in the comments below. So if you want to read through some of those things, I do find it interesting, reading through some of this, at least the one that I'm looking at, it is talking about a lot of older media, talking about print, talking about newspapers and everything, but how relevant it is to here and now. You just got to replace a couple of keywords in there, and it's the same thing going on here. I find that really interesting. The more we have these kind of marketing discussions and relating old world media to new world media, and I would suspect that it's just completely different. We're in a completely different world than we were in even 15 years ago, but how similar it all is.
Truth is timeless. Yes, yeah, it really is. Like I said, there's a lot of things about the old media, the old style of advertising that aren't relevant today, but there's just as many that are as relevant today or and are as true as ever. And Miles, I'll just tack in one closing thing right here at the end. Um, and when I hear the one about assuming the business owner knows best, that one always makes me think about the marketing bridge, which is also a really old concept in marketing. I mean, I think it goes all the way back to the 1960s. It's like Mad Men type of stuff. Uh, it is something that we deal with all the time here in 2020, and I imagine we will until we are old and gray and going away. And the marketing bridge, of course, we reference it a lot, but I'll just give a definition. The marketing bridge is the idea that what you're saying in your advertising and marketing has to sync up with what people are actually experiencing when they do business with you, right? So the one example I always use is that if you're telling people you have the friendliest wait staff in town, and that's your catchphrase, and then they're coming in there and they're getting bad service, that's going to hurt you way more than if you weren't relying all your marketing on we're the friendliest people in town. So everything that you say has got to match up with what they actually experience. And the thing that I find really remarkable about this whole concept is that it is amplified probably 100 times now, that within the age of Yelp and the age of instant reviews and all of this stuff, where the consumer can immediately trash your business online and say how terrible the experience that they had there, whereas they obviously couldn't do that in the 1960s. But so it's way more important today to have a strong marketing bridge than it has ever been. And it also goes back to that idea, that your people are spending a lot of money in order to find out all the mistakes. They're paying me in order for their audience to find out all the mistakes that they're making. I always tell people that good advertising is going to do one of two things. It's going to make you grow, or it's going to make you go out of business faster. And that all depends on the marketing bridge and all of those things that happen inside of a business to determine whether or not a customer is happy or not. And so before we do any kind of a large scale advertising campaign, we have to fix, or at least be aware of, the problems in our marketing bridge and where that might be crumbling. And otherwise, we're really just pissing away money in the wind. So I'll leave it on that.
That's a good note to end it on. I think we've been going for almost exactly an hour now, so I think we're going to call it a close for today. Tune in next week.
It looks like there's one last question I just saw from Jeff. Was Muhammad Ali making unsubstantiated claims? Jeff, that's a great question, and if I'll just leave it with something my granddaddy used to tell me. He used to say, "You know what? If you done it, it ain't bragging." So he backed it up. So Muhammad Ali could say whatever he wanted. All right. Thanks for the questions, Jeff.
As
All right,
always.
Miles. Now you can take us out.
All right. Like I said, next week we're going to be coming back at our regular time, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. This should be a regular weekly occurrence. We're publishing this. We're live streaming to both our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. So pick your poison there and check out the show next week, next Wednesday at 11 live. Mike, thanks as always.
Thank you, Miles. Everybody have a prosperous week. We'll see you next Wednesday, not Thursday. God willing.
Next Wednesday. All right. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. See you on Wednesday.